Hey guys, I'm Josh Popek with Brock Partners. If you found this video, you are in the right place to help you with your Medicare journey on your 65 Compass. We hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.
If you found this video, then you are certainly considering looking at Medicare coverage, and you're maybe turning 65, or maybe you've been on a Medicare plan for some time. And if you've done your research, then you probably have already figured out what the primary options for Medicare are. And you're still maybe asking yourself this question: what else should I consider? You're asking yourself, what else should I consider? And I'm glad you found this video, because that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what else you should consider when it comes to Medicare coverage, right? You've done your research, you figured out what Medicare plan you want, but you've seen some of the things that aren't covered, and maybe you're asking yourself, what else should I ask? What else should I think about? And that's what we're going to discuss today. When it comes to your health insurance, there's lots of things to consider. Now, we do know that with Original Medicare and Medicare Advantage, we know that with Medicare we have 4 parts to Medicare, and that's going to be Part A, B, C, and D. We have parts A, B, C, and D. A is going to be hospital. Part A is hospital. If you've done your research, then you know that this covers your inpatient services, your inpatient claims. This is what is footing the bill when you stay the night somewhere. And then we have Part B, which is medical. And medical is what foots the bill for outpatient services, doctor's office visits, thing of that nature. When a doctor does a service, performs a service, gives you a service, this is what foots the bill, outpatient services. Part C is Medicare Advantage, which is a whole different primary type of insurance, health insurance, when it comes to Medicare. We have Original Medicare, which is made up of these two, and then we have Medicare Advantage, which is its own thing, and it takes the primary Medicare coverage and puts it through a private carrier. And then we have Part D, which is drug coverage. And those are your 4 parts to Medicare. And most people have done their research here, and they have some kind of an idea. Maybe you are well educated on it and you know exactly what you want with these 4. Maybe you are still considering what each of these are and which direction I should go. We have other videos on the Compass page, the Turning 65 Compass page, that you can look at and watch and be educated on that as well. But for the sake of this video, I'm giving an overview, very high overview, of these 4 parts. These are your primary forms of insurance, A and B together, and then Part C. And then Part D, of course, is for drug coverage if you elect to stay on A and B. This is what everybody looks into. And then maybe you've considered and looked at what we call a Medicare supplement if you were electing to stay on Original Medicare. You're electing to stay on A and B, then you've considered a Medicare supplement. Most people have considered these things when it comes to Medicare, and you've researched these things. You've looked into them, and you know which direction you want to go. Again, if you don't, that's fine too. We can certainly help you. You can find one of the other videos, or you could follow the information in the description of this video. Right under the video, in the description, you can find contact information. You can reach out to us and get in touch with an agent. We would love to talk to you about your options when it comes to Original Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, all those in between, and drug plans too. We would love to talk about that, but I also want to discuss what else you should consider, and that's our primary topic for this video. So what are things that I should consider? Well, in order to answer that question, what I have to really understand, what I need to know, is what does Medicare not cover? What are gaps that are not going to be covered by the things that I'm looking at? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Original Medicare. So we're going to start with Original Medicare here in this portion of our video. Original Medicare. Things that you need to consider that maybe are not covered by Medicare or have a gap that we're not thinking about. Now, I'm not going to dive super deep into the hospital and medical claims, because there's a good chance that you've already looked at a Medicare supplement, but I will briefly describe it and explain it. I do have, so my first thing here, I have out of pocket. I'm going to put OOP for out of pocket expenses, which would be things like deductibles and co-pays, my 80/20 coinsurance. These are the things that I have out of pocket on original Medicare. When I'm talking about parts A and B, right? And I'll even put that in the side here, A and B. If I elect to stay on A and B, I elect to keep original Medicare as my primary insurance. These are things that I could see being out of my pocket: deductibles, copays, my 80/20 coinsurance. And the big deal here is I have no maximum out of pocket. Well, how do we address this? How do we fill these gaps? Well, traditionally, we get a Medicare supplement. And if you want to learn more about Medicare supplements, we do have videos on that. You can follow our page. Go subscribe to the page and then find the video about Medicare supplements. You can go and find that video. You can watch it, and we actually talk a lot about what Medicare supplement options you have and how they fill these gaps for you. So that's out there for you. But that's traditionally how we fill those. So I don't really want to focus on this out-of-pocket cost or what's not covered as much as I do these other areas that I'm going to describe to you. The second thing I need to describe to you here is this: dental, vision, and hearing. Original Medicare does not include dental, vision, and hearing. And there's certain reasons why. There's reasons we can talk about. But again, I have another video for that on standalone dental plans that you can go and you can look into that and find more options on that and hear about why and learn about why Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, hearing, but it doesn't. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Original Medicare does not cover dental, vision, and hearing. What's another out-of-pocket gap that I need to consider? Well, I do need to consider that if I go A and B, I'm going to have to get onto a Part D plan. If I go original Medicare and I want drug coverage, I would have to get a Part D plan. And most people don't know this, but on Part D, I do have what we call a $2,100 troop, which is true out of pocket, but you could label it MOOP if you'd like, max out of pocket. That's the term that most people are familiar with, is my MOOP, max out of pocket. But we call it troop in the industry. So Part D plans, I have a $2,100 troop or MOOP that I would need to consider. That's something that I need to consider. That is an out-of-pocket expense that a lot of people are not necessarily prepared for. That they're not prepared for. And then, of course, just like any other health insurance, I need to consider non-medical expenses. Non-medical expenses. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is maybe you end up having some kind of chronic condition or a very catastrophic event happen, and you have to go to a specialized hospital on the other side of the United States. And while you're there, you're having to rent an apartment, or you're having to stay in a hotel for a long time. You're losing income. Somebody's losing income staying with you. There's lots of things that you need to consider that you don't when we're talking about Medicare, because we don't traditionally think about those things. But we need to consider them. And with all of our customers, all of our clients, we do consider those things, and we advise in a way that would show that. We think about all the things you aren't going to think about. And so non-medical expenses is certainly something that should be top of your list. And we're going to talk about products that will help us fill those gaps. So I have these different things that I should consider. And when I'm looking at these, I have a pretty solid answer for all of them. But before I jump into those answers, I do want to talk about Medicare Advantage for a moment. So Medicare Advantage, and I'm just going to put MAPD/MA. That's Medicare Advantage prescription drug and Medicare Advantage. That's what those stand for. So Part C is what we're looking at. And I'll even put that in parentheses here for you, Part C. With Part C, we have a couple things that we need to consider. I have to still consider my out-of-pocket expenses. Just like with original Medicare, I have some out-of-pocket expenses that I need to consider. And they look very similar. They are different. But I need to consider deductibles, co-pays, and then I still need to even consider maybe some coinsurance. However, one thing that I have here that I do not have with original Medicare is that I do have a MOOP. And so that may change some of the things that I do consider. Second thing here, I don't have to necessarily worry about dental, vision, hearing as much because these plans do include dental, vision, hearing, but obviously I need to get a secondary for my first spot, but then the second thing here is I still need to consider maybe dental, vision, hearing coverage. Because I do get dental, vision, hearing with these plans, but at the same time, I may not get enough or adequate coverage depending on what plan that I enroll in. Most of these Medicare Advantage plans do have a very, very adequate dental, vision, hearing coverage, but maybe I do need more. And so that's something I need to consider. And then third, what we're looking at here is we are looking at non-medical expenses, just like Medicare supplements. I need to worry about my non-medical expenses. And I put that at third on this list. You're going to see that 3 and 4 are swapped here compared to what it was with Medicare supplements, but it is the same. And with Medicare Advantage, I do have to worry about my $2,100 troop on Part D. So you can see here that the four things I need to consider are the same. They're the same as what Medicare supplements are. I just maybe ranked them a little differently because the drug plan here, maybe here is less daunting compared to non-medical expenses because I do have more non-medical expenses associated with Medicare Advantage than maybe Medicare supplement, things that I need to consider. And so how do we answer for these out-of-pocket costs? How do we answer for these things that you need to consider? Well, there's lots of ancillary products that we advise our customers and clients to look into that I'm going to advise you to look into as well. First things first, we need to look at secondaries. And depending on which direction you go will depend on what secondary you need to consider. I kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, but what I'm looking at here is if I am sticking with original Medicare A and B, the secondary I need to consider is a Medicare supplement. And we do have a full video breakdown of that. I need to consider a Medicare supplement because I don't want to end up paying those out-of-pocket costs that maybe are associated with the original Medicare. And I explained that briefly earlier. But even if I go Medicare Advantage, MAPD or MA, I need to consider a secondary. But with this direction, that secondary would be what we call a hospital indemnity plan. We call it HIP for short. Hospital indemnity plan. The word indemnity plan, it implies that it's going to pay out a fixed rate per service. And then hospital implies that this primarily is focused on hospital. And the reason we like these plans for these Medicare Advantage plans is because with Medicare Advantage, you have larger co-pays associated with the hospital or maybe ambulance rides or skilled nursing facility or ER or whatever. I mean, surgeries, things that you maybe are not considering that you do end up having large co-pays for with these plans. Well, if I have a secondary in place like a hospital indemnity plan, that is going to come in and fill in the gaps, my responsibilities on these co-pays. So that's something I certainly need to consider. When it comes to the secondary route, I need to definitely consider a Medicare supplement with A and B. And then with the Medicare Advantage plan, I certainly need to consider going a hospital indemnity plan, pairing that with my Medicare Advantage plan so that I fill in the gaps of that coverage. And that's something that we love to look into. And these can have riders to them. They can cover all sorts of things. They have lots of great value to them because they can take care of those copays that I mentioned. Plus, we can add critical illness protection to them. We can add doctor's office copays protection to them. All sorts of things that we can add here that make these very viable with Medicare Advantage. Second here, obviously, we need to consider a standalone dental, vision, hearing plan on both of them. A standalone dental, vision, hearing plan. That's what we need to consider, a standalone dental, vision, hearing plan. Need to consider that both routes. Because right here on original Medicare, I don't have dental, vision, hearing coverage at all. And with Medicare Advantage, I may have it, but it may not seem as adequate as what I need it to be. So those are definitely things that I need to consider. I need to consider getting dental, vision, hearing coverage with both of them. The third thing that I need to consider here is what I'm going to call CHAS, and this stands for cancer, heart attack, and stroke. Cancer, heart attack, and stroke. I need to consider this for both options. I need to consider this policy, these types of policies for both options. And what these CHAS policies are, cancer, heart attack, and stroke policies are, they're lump sum products, lump sum policies that pay out in the event that you're diagnosed with cancer, heart attack, or stroke. That's how they work out. And typically it's separated. We have cancer and then we have heart attack and stroke. So a cancer policy is typically going to pay out for cancer, and then the heart attack and stroke will pay out for heart attack or stroke. That's how those work. But they pay out lump sum benefits, and we find these to be very beneficial, especially when we're talking about that troop, that $2,100 troop on your drugs. This is a great answer for that. If I am, God forbid, diagnosed with cancer, heart attack, or stroke, and I end up having to pay my troop a couple of years in a row, well, if I have this in place, maybe I get a $10,000 benefit. I can use that money to pay for my troop for a few years. Or maybe on Medicare Advantage, I have my MOOP, my max out of pocket on my medical. This can help pay for that. And then whatever I have left over on my hospital indemnity plan, I can use that to continue to fund my copays. But maybe I've met that completely. I wouldn't have copays. Maybe I can put this back for a rainy day, start saving those things. And so it really is just additional coverage that takes care of you in a worst case scenario. And it's very good for either way. I want you to imagine for a moment that maybe you are on a Medicare Advantage plan and your maximum out of pocket, let's say, is $7,000, and then you're diagnosed with a cancer, let's say in September, and you start doing treatment and you meet your max out of pocket of $7,000 between September and December, and then the new year comes, you're still doing treatment. That's another $7,000 that you meet between January and May, because your max out of pocket resets at the beginning of the year. Well, that can be $14,000 that you're out of pocket. That's why we like having these in place to protect you from that and make sure that they have enough coverage to pay that adequately for you. So you should definitely consider some kind of critical illness. We also like to call that critical illness coverage, cancer, heart attack, and stroke, something of that nature. Something else you should consider here with both directions is home health care. Home health care. You should certainly look into home health care products, because original Medicare will cover home health care to some degree, very limited, but it will not cover home health aid at all. So it'll cover a little home health care, but it won't cover home health aid at all. And since that's the case, we definitely need to make sure that we have adequate coverage there, and it's something that you should consider. It's something that you should look into. So a home health care product is something that's great to look into. And the way these policies work is they are much like an indemnity plan, where they pay out X amount for the service. So if I have a home health care nurse come to my house, it'll pay X amount for each visit that nurse gives me. And if it's paying out, then typically it's going to pay what I owe there, and can be a great saver on costs that I could have out of my own pocket associated with home health care. Now, we've talked about some of the products that we should consider. There's other things that you should consider too when you're talking about retiring that I won't dive in too much with, but obviously we need to consider long-term care, something that's great to consider. We need to also consider my family's coverage. If I'm going to Medicare, then maybe my spouse is still going to need some kind of coverage because they were on my coverage, my employer coverage, and now they're losing it because I'm going to Medicare. I need to consider that. That's something I need to look into. Maybe I want to look into long-term care so that I have something in place to protect me. Maybe my grandkids or maybe my kids are still living at home with me and I am their primary source of health insurance. I need to consider that. Those are all things that you need to consider that Medicare is not going to cover for you traditionally. And so you need to look into those things, and you need to pay attention to those things. And we call these health ancillary products. So we have these health ancillary products that we like to put into packages for our customers, for our clients. And we like to talk about these products so that our customers know exactly what they're looking at and exactly what types of coverages they need to fill all the gaps and all the areas of concern when it comes to health insurance or anything on the other side of retirement. And then finally, I'll put here number 7, Maybe you need to consider retirement accounts. Maybe it's time to, maybe it is time to start looking at, rolling over a retirement account or something of that nature. I won't dive into that too much because I do like to focus on the health insurance side. And life insurance is another thing you consider as well. To wrap up our video, I want to give you an illustration to wrap up our video. I like to do something called the Medicare House, And this shows customers exactly what I mean by having these packaged together. We've talked about these ancillary products, and I like to break this down for customers in a way that they understand. And so what I'm looking at here is I have two houses, and that's because I have two directions that I could go with my coverage. Let's say you decide that you want to stay on original Medicare A and B. Well, that's going to become the foundation of my home. That's the foundation of my house that I'm building here, is original Medicare A and B. That's the foundation. But I still need a floor to walk on, and so we go and get something like a Medicare supplement. Well, now that becomes the floor of my home. But you can see here that I have a lot of pieces to my house that I still have to build. And so I need some walls. In order for my house to stand, I need to get some walls, and that's going to be through what we call Part D, a drug plan, right? Maybe I go and get drug coverage because that is something that I need to make sure is covered. And then after that, I need a ceiling on my house, so I'm going to get dental, vision, and hearing. I'll go and get some dental, vision, hearing coverage. And that's going to become the ceiling of my home to fill in that gap for me. But then I still need a roof to keep the rain out, and that's when I would consider a CHAS product to build out my house. And when you're talking about a house or a package, if you will, that's built out this way, that can be very beneficial for you because we're looking at all the things that you should consider with Medicare. We've hit all those points for you. And even with Medicare Advantage, same concept over here. My Advantage plan becomes my primary coverage. Now the good news is with the Advantage plan, I typically do get a drug plan automatically in there. So that's already added if I want it to be. And then, I do need to consider some other things. I already get dental, vision, and hearing, but I still want to maybe consider getting more. So what do I need to consider? Well, I still need to get a floor, as you can see over here. I've got a foundation. I need to get a floor, and that's going to be through the hospital indemnity plan. Again, my walls are already included. I don't have to purchase additional coverage for drug coverage. My walls are already included with Part D, so that's great. My dental, vision, hearing is there, but maybe I do need more of a ceiling, so maybe I put plus over here. But then I still need a roof to keep the rain out. And so maybe I consider a CHAS plan. And so that's kind of the illustration there, the houses here that show you what you need to consider. Not everybody's going to take all these, not everybody's going to want all these or need all these, but there are things that you need to consider. There's areas of Medicare you need to consider because there's areas that Medicare doesn't cover. It doesn't cover dental, vision, hearing. It has a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. It doesn't cover home health care very well. It doesn't cover home health aid at all. So there's things you need to consider. It doesn't cover long-term care at all. So those are all things that you need to consider, and these are just illustrations to show you a breakdown of how that looks. So if you're turning 65 and you're looking to all these options with Medicare, please consider other things so that you don't get caught in an area where you're needing coverage and you don't have it. That's something you need to consider. And if you do want to talk to an agent about these products and these areas of concern or areas that need more adequate coverage, you can get in contact with us by following the information in the description of the video below. And you can talk to one of our agents. I promise you they would love to advise you on what direction you need to take on your Medicare journey because we are the T65 Compass. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Hey, John Waller with Brock Partners. If you enjoyed this video and got some good content out of it, please click the link below and give us a call. Our number is in the description as well as our contact information. Hope this helps.